I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of my office on the 42nd floor of the Chase building, staring out at the Seattle skyline as the sun dipped behind the Olympic Mountains. The city looked peaceful from up here, but I'd been around long enough to know that peace is often just the calm before a storm. Something was off. I couldn't shake the feeling gnawing at the back of my mind like a splinter I couldn't reach. The glass in front of me reflected a man who barely recognized himself anymore. Sharp gray suit, silvered hair, cut military short, a body still disciplined from years as a Marine, but eyes hardened by betrayal and loss. The same eyes that had stared down enemies in combat zones now scrutinized spreadsheets in boardrooms. I had built Summit Engineering Group from the ground up, pouring every ounce of discipline, strategy, and sheer stubbornness into it. And now I could feel it slipping away like water through clenched fists. The door behind me creaked open. No knock. No hesitation. I didn't turn around. "Lucas," I said flatly. "You're working late again," Lucas Bennett, my CFO and oldest friend, said as he stepped in. I could hear the worry in his voice. He was a good man, steady, loyal, the kind of guy you wanted in your foxhole when things got bad. "I'm always working late," I replied, still not turning, "especially when something feels wrong." He moved to stand beside me, following my gaze over the city. "The Lakeshore Project, I exhaled slowly, my breath fogging the glass. "It's Maya." I felt Lucas tense beside me. His silence was confirmation enough he'd noticed it too. My wife. My partner in both life and business. We had built this company together brick by brick, contract by contract. And lately, she'd been slipping away. Late nights, whispered phone calls, quick excuses, and cold kisses. I wasn't a fool. I didn't jump to conclusions. I gathered facts. I watched. And then I acted. That was the Marine in me. Never act on emotion. Always act on intel. Lucas cleared his throat. "You think she's—" "I don't think anything yet." I cut him off, finally turning to face him. "But I observe. Always." He nodded, but his expression said more than his words could. Everyone at Summit knew Maya wasn't just my wife. She was the co-founder of this empire. The face to my vision, the charm to my grit. We'd been a team. Until we weren't. That night, the house on Mercer Island felt colder than usual. The lights were off when I walked in. No dinner waiting. No Maya. Just silence and the faint smell of her perfume lingering in the air like a ghost of what used to be. I loosened my tie, poured 2 fingers of bourbon, and sat down at my laptop. The screen glowed to life and Emily's face appeared. My sister, my only real family left. Short brown hair tucked behind her ears, eyes sharp as hell. "Did you set it up?" I asked, no preamble. She nodded, her voice low. "GPS tracker on her car. Keylogger on her work devices. Surveillance on the files you flagged. If she tries to move anything, we'll know." "Good." My voice was flat, unforgiving. "Ryan?" She hesitated. "Are you sure about this? About her?" "I'm sure I need to know the truth," I replied. "And if I'm wrong, we'll bury it. But I'm not wrong." The next morning, I was in the office before sunrise. I nodded to the security guard, took the executive elevator to the top floor, and walked past Maya's office. The door was closed at 6:45 a.m. That was unusual. I paused just long enough to catch the low murmur of voices inside hers and a man's. I couldn't hear the words, but the tone, the intimacy was enough. I kept walking, straight to my office. I pulled up the security feed on my computer, switching to the interior camera in Maya's office. There she was, seated too close to Ethan Reynolds, the venture capitalist from San Francisco, who'd been sniffing around Summit for months pretending to be interested in investing. His hand brushed her arm. She didn't pull away. Her smile was soft, familiar. My stomach twisted, but my face stayed blank. I checked the server logs. They'd both been in the office until nearly midnight. Together. They'd accessed the files I'd flagged: proprietary designs, financials, client lists, all of it. I took a slow breath. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a hostile takeover in the making. That evening, my phone buzzed an alert from Emily's tracker. Maya's car was parked outside the Grandview Hotel downtown. I drove there, parked across the street, and waited. At 10:17 p.m., as she walked out with Ethan, his arm casually around her waist. They kissed before going to separate cars. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white, but I didn't move. I didn't say a word when she got home later that night, slipping through the door like nothing had happened. I kissed her cheek, told her I loved her, and went back to reviewing blueprints, because I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. First, I had to build my case. The next week passed like a slow-motion car crash. Every day I played the part of the dedicated CEO attending meetings, reviewing blueprints, shaking hands, giving updates. Outwardly, nothing had changed. But beneath the surface, I was watching, documenting, waiting for the right moment to strike. Maya moved through the office like a queen, smiling that polished smile she'd perfected over the years. Ethan wasn't as smooth. He was cocky, too casual, lingering too long in her office, looking at her like she was his prize. I caught it all on the cameras and the server logs through the emails Emily forwarded me from the system she'd set up. Every night, Maya came home late. Her excuses were vague. Client dinner ran long. Traffic was terrible. You know how it is? I didn't argue. I didn't confront. I kissed her goodnight, told her I'd see her in the morning, and let her believe she was winning. Because that's the enemy's greatest weakness, thinking they're winning. Lucas knew something was up. We were sitting in a bar downtown, far from the usual spots we hit for after-work drinks. It was dim quiet, the kind of place where conversations stayed private. He nursed a whiskey, watching me over the rim of his glass. "You sure about this approach?" he asked, his voice low. I leaned back in the booth, scanning the room out of habit. When I was in the Marines, we had a saying, the enemy's greatest weakness is believing they're winning. I'm letting them believe it. For now, Lucas shook his head. Maya's not the enemy, Ryan. She's your wife. I met his gaze steady and cold. Anyone who betrays me is the enemy. Don't forget that. The weight of my words hung between us. Lucas didn't respond, just looked down at his drink. Afterward, I drove home in the rain, the wipers beating a steady rhythm. I thought back to the early days, Maya and me working side by side in a cramped apartment, drafting designs on a folding table. We'd risked everything, our savings, our credit, even the idea of a family. We'd promised ourselves that once Summit was stable, we'd think about kids, about the future. But the company became the future. We told ourselves we had time. Now it was all unraveling. The next day, I intercepted an email from Ethan to Maya sent to her personal account, but carelessly opened on her work laptop. Rookie mistake. The subject line was simple: Friday. The message was short. The board is on board. Gordon and Phillips are voting with us. That's 4-3 in our favor. After the shareholder meeting on Friday, we'll announce the restructure. He won't know what hit him. I stared at the screen, my pulse steady, my breath slow. So that was the plan. Wait for the shareholder meeting, ambush me with a vote of no confidence, paint me as a liability, and take the company. I forwarded the email to Emily and deleted it from Maya's account. Clean quiet. That night, I stayed at the office late, studying the company bylaws and shareholder agreements I drafted years ago. The documents felt like a lifeline, lines of legalese that could save or destroy everything. The fine print mattered now more than ever. The next morning, I met with Lauren Chang, my attorney. We sat in her office in downtown Seattle, her walls lined with diplomas from Yale and framed articles from the Wall Street Journal. "They can't just vote you out," she said, after reviewing the contracts. "Your founder's shares have protection clauses." I shook my head. "Not if they convince the board I'm a liability. They'll spin my military background as unstable. They'll say I'm too rigid, too old school, refusing outside investment." Lauren's jaw tightened. "This is a character assassination." "No," I corrected her. "This is war." And they fired the first shot. That night, I met Emily at a quiet diner near the docks, neutral ground. She slid a flash drive across the table. "Preston Reynolds isn't just some VC looking to invest," she said. 3 companies he acquired in the last 5 years were gutted, sold for parts. Employees laid off, assets stripped, then dissolved. "And Maya knows this," I asked, my voice like steel. "The email suggests she does." Emily's voice faltered just for a second. "There's more. They've already booked one-way tickets to Buenos Aires leaving Saturday." I felt the world slow down. My hands tightened around my coffee cup. So they were going to take the company cash out and disappear into the sun. Not on my watch. Saturday morning, the day after the board meeting, I sat in my home office staring at a photograph of me and Maya on the day we signed the lease for Summit's first office. Her smile had seemed so genuine then. But now all I saw was a woman who had calculated every move. A woman who had traded loyalty for leverage. I turned the photo face down on the desk, opened my laptop, and started typing. It was time to fight back. By the time Friday rolled around, I was ready. I woke up before dawn, the rain tapping against the windows like a drumbeat in my head. I poured black coffee into a travel mug, put on a navy suit, and checked my phone's security feed, server logs, legal filings, everything running on schedule. The board meeting was set for 2:00 p.m. I had 6 hours to lock in the final pieces. At noon, I called Lucas. "It's time," I said quietly. There was a pause on the line. I could hear the weight of the moment settle over him. Are you sure, he asked. I've been sure since the moment she first lied to me, I replied, my voice like a hammer coming down on stone. Execute the protocol. Lucas didn't argue. He never did when it mattered. By 1:30, I was walking into the boardroom, heart steady, mind razor sharp. The walls of the conference room were glass, framing the Seattle skyline in the distance, but the real battle was right here around the table. 7 board members sat waiting. I could feel the shift in the air the second I stepped in. Gordon and Phillips already leaning toward Ethan, trying to look casual. Howard playing neutral. Winters and Rodriguez unreadable. Davis and Thompson, the last 2 who still backed me. Maya and Ethan sat at the far end side by side. No pretense today. She didn't even bother with the smile. Ethan wore that smug grin, the kind that said he thought he'd already won. Nathan, Ethan said smoothly, like we were old friends. Didn't expect to see you here. We were just reviewing some routine financial updates. Is that what you're calling it? I asked, my voice low and calm, as I took my seat at the head of the table. Routine. Ethan opened his mouth, but I cut him off. Then explain these. I slid a thick folder across the polished wood table. The board members leaned in, flipping through the pages, emails, screenshots, financial projections, even a timeline of the takeover plan. The silence was deafening. Maya's face drained of color as she skimmed the documents. Ethan's smile faltered. How did you? You've been sloppy, I said. Midnight logins, flagged IP addresses, unauthorized file transfers. You really thought you could hide this from me? Gordon frowned, flipping to a page that showed Ethan and Maya's emails detailing the plan to restructure Summit, cut staff, and sell off the intellectual property. Maya, he said, his voice sharp, is this true? She opened her mouth, but I didn't give her the chance. And let's talk about the patents. I continued, my voice steady as a blade. You see, Summit Engineering doesn't own the intellectual property that makes us valuable. I do. Personally. Ethan's eyes narrowed. That's impossible. The company holds all patents and processes. I allowed myself a small, cold smile. No, Ethan. Summit has an exclusive licensing agreement with me. It's in the contracts. Section 12, paragraph 4. The agreement becomes void in the event of a hostile takeover. I suggest you review the documents. You apparently didn't read carefully enough. Gordon's pen slipped from his fingers. Phillips looked pale. Maya sat frozen like a chess player who just realized her king was exposed. This meeting is adjourned, I said, standing. Review the materials. We'll reconvene Monday morning to discuss next steps. I suggest you think carefully about your positions. I turned and walked out, leaving them scrambling in my wake. As I reached my office, my phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. Injunction granted. Assets frozen. Court order will be served today. Perfect. At 3:00 a.m. my phone rang. I answered without looking. Ryan, you can't do this. Maya's voice cracked a mix of panic and rage. I already did, I said calmly. Summit is mine. The board didn't vote the way you expected. I interrupted, my tone ice cold. There was a beat of silence, then her voice rose in fury. You son of a bitch! I hung up without another word. By sunrise, the fallout was already starting. Maya's phone lit up like a Christmas tree, calls from Ethan, board members, her own attorney. The panic in her voice carried through the walls of our home office. What do you mean he owns the patents? She yelled into the phone. That's not possible. Then softer, more desperate. What injunction? He can't freeze our accounts. I sipped my coffee, reviewing the latest project blueprints, as if none of it mattered. But it did. Everything had changed. The day after the board meeting, the storm truly hit. It wasn't the loud, violent kind of storm that shakes the windows and rattles the walls. No, this was a slow, methodical collapse, a structural failure hidden in the foundation, finally exposed to the light. It started with Ethan. His penthouse in San Francisco, once a symbol of his success, felt like a prison now. I knew because I was watching. My team had eyes on him, tracking every move, every call, every transaction. The same investors who'd been singing his praises just a week ago were now ghosting him, refusing to take his calls, cutting ties before the heat could reach them. I could imagine him pacing, checking his phone every few minutes, waiting for a call that would never come. His empire crumbling beneath him. Maya wasn't faring any better. She had moved into a hotel downtown, a far cry from the waterfront home we used to share on Mercer Island. I knew she was struggling because the credit card charges told the story. Room service, cheap wine, frantic purchases from department stores, as if buying a new life on credit could erase the one she'd destroyed. Then the FBI stepped in. It was only a matter of time. The agents showed up at Ethan's door, first Special Agent Dawson and Agent Kasparian, both sharp-suited and calm like sharks who knew they'd already won. They asked about financial irregularities, about the offshore accounts, about the suspicious wire transfers that had been popping up across multiple countries. Ethan tried to play it cool, tried to talk his way out, but the panic was there just under the surface. He wasn't as good at hiding it as he thought. Maya called me that night. Her voice was small, hollow. "Ryan, please, we need to talk." I didn't say anything. Just listened to the sound of her breathing, ragged and desperate. "They're investigating everything. They're saying I'm part of it, that I knew about the offshore accounts." "I didn't." "Yes, you did." I cut her off. My voice was cold, final. "You knew exactly what you were doing." Her breath hitched like I'd punched the air out of her lungs. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," she whispered. "Ethan, he told me it would be different. That we'd stop," I snapped. "I don't want to hear it. You made your choice. Now live with it." I hung up. The next morning, Lucas walked into my office holding a file like it was radioactive. "You're not going to believe this," he said, dropping it on my desk. I opened it. Inside were transcripts Emily had intercepted Ethan and Maya's texts from the dummy server she'd set up. They were panicking. Ethan was trying to convince Maya to blackmail me to use information about my military record as leverage. They were desperate, grasping at anything they could to stop the bleeding. Maya's message had been simple. "I told you Ryan won't respond to threats. He doesn't work like that. You don't know him like I do." Ethan's reply, "Everyone responds to the right threat. Make the call." I felt a flicker of something, not fear, not worry, but a grim satisfaction. They were circling the drain, and they knew it. Later that afternoon, I addressed the entire company. All hands meeting 4 p.m. main auditorium. The energy in the room was tense, thick with rumors and whispered speculation. I stood at the front, hands steady, voice clear. "Some of you have heard rumors," I began. "Here are the facts. Ethan Reynolds and Maya Carter attempted to execute a hostile takeover of Summit Engineering. They failed. Summit remains under my leadership. Business will continue as usual." I let that sink in, then added, effective immediately, Lucas Bennett is promoted to Chief Operating Officer. Emily Carter joins as our new Chief Security Officer. Anyone who feels uncomfortable with these changes is free to resign. Those who stay will be rewarded for their loyalty. No one moved. No one spoke. That was the thing about a fortress. Once the walls are built, you either stand inside or stay the hell out. That night, I sat in what had been Maya's office, now stripped bare. The photos of us, the little personal touches, gone. Just an empty space, sterile and cold. My phone buzzed. A text from Lucas, Phase 1 complete. Collateral damage minimal. I stared at the screen for a long moment before replying. "Good. Begin Phase 2. I put the phone down, leaned back in the chair, and closed my eyes for a moment. This was far from over. But I wasn't done building. Not yet. Ethan's world was crumbling, and I was the architect of its collapse. He tried to hold it together, calling in favors, begging investors, threatening lawsuits. None of it worked. Every client he contacted gave him the same answer. "No, we've heard the rumors. We don't want to be involved." His confidence, that smug arrogance he wore like a tailored suit, was stripped bare now. I watched it all unfold from the corner office of Summit, my phone lighting up with updates from Emily. Ethan tried to call the Dubai investors. They hung up on him. He's left 6 voicemails for Gordon. No response. His legal team is bailing. They don't want the fallout. It was like watching a building implode, slow and controlled, one support beam at a time until there was nothing left but dust. Meanwhile, Maya was unraveling in real time. I could hear her through the walls of our once shared home, pacing, her voice rising on frantic calls. I caught pieces. "What do you mean the accounts are frozen?" "No, I don't have the funds." "I told you he's behind this. I can't. My cards are maxed out. I don't know what to do." Her panic was like a song, each note a reminder of how far she'd fallen. Then the FBI made it official. Emily sent me the notification, an unsealed warrant signed off by the federal court. Ethan and Maya were under formal investigation for conspiracy, fraud, and attempted corporate espionage. The agents weren't knocking politely anymore. They were seizing documents, freezing assets, hauling in witnesses. I knew the day would come when Maya would reach for the only thing she thought she had left me. It happened late on a stormy night, lightning flashing against the windows, the rain hammering the roof like gunfire. My phone rang. Her name lit up the screen. I let it buzz once, twice, 3 times. Then I answered, my voice flat. "Ryan." She was crying, real raw sobs that tore through the line. For a split second, the sound twisted something deep inside me, something old and buried. But it passed. "Please," she begged. "I didn't want this. Ethan, He promised it would be different. I didn't know how deep it went. I was trying to protect us. I let the silence stretch, the weight of her words sinking into the void. Protect us, I finally said, my voice low, almost a growl. You sold me out. You sold the company out. Don't pretend you did this for anyone but yourself. Ryan, please. Save it, I snapped, cutting her off. My patience was gone. My mercy had dried up weeks ago. The FBI will deal with you. I'm done. Her voice broke, a guttural sound of someone losing everything at once. I hung up. I sat in the dark for a long time after that, staring at the skyline, watching the storm roll over the city. Then my phone buzzed again. Emily. Ryan, you need to see this. She sent a file. I opened it, and there it was, another email intercepted from Ethan's desperate flurry of communications. Subject: leverage, from Ethan to Maya. If Ryan won't back down, we hit him where it hurts. The military files, his classified record. We leak it to the press, ruin his name. He won't survive the fallout. The words burned across the screen, but my pulse didn't even jump. I knew what they'd try. I'd prepared for this the day I left the Marines. Every file, every mission, every shadow of my past had been locked down so tight even the Pentagon wouldn't dare open it without a warrant signed in triplicate. But that they'd try, that they'd sink that low. It didn't surprise me. It only confirmed what I already knew. Maya and Ethan weren't just desperate, they were dangerous. And desperate, dangerous people are at their most reckless when they realize they have already lost. I forwarded the email to Lauren. Her reply was immediate. This is actionable. We can move on defamation charges if they attempt it. Do you want to proceed? I typed back a single word, yes. Later that night, as the storm finally broke the air, still and heavy, I poured myself a bourbon and stared at the security feed: Ethan's apartment, Maya's hotel room, Tyler's dorm. All the pieces, all the players scattered and broken. And me, I was the last man standing. But I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. This was just the moment when the walls finally started to collapse. And I was ready for the rubble. Ethan was cornered, and he knew it. His calls weren't getting through. His lawyers had jumped ship, their invoices unpaid, their patience gone. His investors had abandoned him like rats fleeing a sinking ship. He had no one left. The walls were closing in, and I was the one tightening the screws. Emily sent me the footage. Ethan pacing in his stripped-down apartment, eyes, wild hair, disheveled, talking to himself like a man on the brink. His phone was buzzing nonstop, but no one was answering his desperate calls. Then came the envelope. A courier dropped it at the front desk of the rundown building where Ethan had holed up a rat's nest far from the penthouse he once ruled. Inside the envelope, a single sheet of paper printed in bold black letters. The FBI gets everything at 8 a.m. unless you're on the 6 a.m. flight to Buenos Aires. Alone, no signature, no logo, just a promise and a threat. He packed in 15 minutes. Emily watched through the security cameras, narrating over the phone. He's throwing stuff in a duffel. Passport, cash, burner phone. He's running Ryan. Let him, I replied, my voice calm as ice. He's not coming back. While Ethan scrambled, Maya was unraveling in a different way. She sat in her hotel room, hair tangled, mascara smudged, scrolling through her phone with trembling hands. She called her sister, Brittany, and I heard the whole conversation through the tap Emily had set up. Britt, I need your help, Maya begged. Brittany's voice was cold tight. The FBI came to my house, Maya. They showed me emails. Emails where you used my name, my social security number, to open offshore accounts. Tell me that's not true. Maya's voice cracked, breaking into a desperate sob. It's not what you think. Ethan handled it. I didn't. Don't lie to me, Brittany snapped. Ryan showed me the proof. He showed me everything. Don't call me again. The line went dead. Maya was well and truly alone now, and still she tried one last time. That night, my phone rang again. It was her. I let it buzz 4 times before I answered. Her voice was hoarse, wrecked from crying. Ryan, I'm begging you, please. Don't let them take everything. Don't let the FBI. I'll do anything. Just tell me what you want. I sat in silence, letting her words hang in the air, heavy and desperate. Finally, I spoke, my voice low and lethal. I want justice. The kind you can't buy your way out of. Her breath hitched a soft, broken sound. Ryan, I loved you. No. I cut in my tone, sharper than glass. You loved what I provided. The power, the company, the lifestyle. You loved what I built. But you never loved me. Silent. Then in a small, broken voice, she whispered, Is there really nothing left to save? I let the quiet stretch my pulse steady. No, I said. Not anymore. I hung up. The next morning, Ethan was arrested at LAX, standing at the check-in counter for his one-way flight to Buenos Aires. The FBI had been waiting, cuffs snapping on like a judge's gavel. Emily texted me a single word, got him. That same afternoon, Lauren called with the latest update. Maya's trying to cut a deal with the feds. She's offering to testify against Ethan in exchange for immunity. Not happening, I replied coldly. Ryan, if she testifies, it could expedite the case against Ethan. The feds want him more than her. Doesn't matter, I said flatly. She faces the full weight of what she did. No deals. Not on my watch. Lauren exhaled sharply, but she knew better than to argue. Later that evening, Sophia stopped by my office, blueprints in hand, her presence a sudden jolt in the storm. She spread the designs across the table, her dark eyes sharp. We need to finalize the load-bearing points for the Dubai project, she said, all business, but her voice was tight as if she was holding back. I leaned over the table, the hum of the city outside, a distant roar. For a few minutes, we were just two architects arguing over cantilevers and tension forces. Then she stopped, looked at me and said quietly, Ryan, you are building towers all over the world, but you're turning into a fortress. No one can get inside. Her words hit harder than I expected. I stared at the designs, the clean lines, the flawless structures, and I realized she wasn't wrong. I had built walls so high no one could get in, not even me. But this wasn't the time for reflection. There was still work to do. Ethan was in custody, Maya was isolated, and I was just getting started. 6 months later, I stood in front of a packed auditorium at the International Architecture and Engineering Awards in Chicago, the lights hot on my face, the applause a dull roar in my ears. They called my name, Ryan Carter, CEO of Summit Engineering, winner of the Innovation and Structural Design Award for the Summit Tower project in Singapore. I accepted the plaque with a firm handshake and a nod, but inside I felt nothing. This was supposed to be the moment of validation, wasn't it? The triumph after the storm. But all I felt was the quiet hum of inevitability. This was what I'd built, what I'd earned, and what I had defended. Thank you, I said into the mic, my voice steady. No quiver, no hint of the war it had taken to get here. This award belongs to the entire Summit team, those who stayed, those who fought for our vision. True innovation comes from integrity, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to building something that lasts. Thank you. The crowd erupted, but I barely registered it. My gaze drifted to the back of the room where Sofia Martinez stood, arms crossed, a knowing look on her face. After the applause faded, she approached. Congratulations, she said, her tone half genuine, half probing. Thanks. Your Singapore design is revolutionary, she added, but her eyes narrowed slightly. But you don't look like a man who just won the biggest award of his career. I met her gaze, the corners of my mouth twitching into something that might have been a smile, if I still remembered how. I'm not here for applause, I replied. I'm here to build. Sophia studied me for a beat, then leaned in. You're not building, you're fortifying. That's not the same thing. Her words sank deep, but I didn't respond. Instead, I glanced down at my phone, Emily's text blinking on the screen. Maya accepted a plea deal, testifying against Ethan, sentencing set for next month. I shoved the phone in my pocket, my jaw tightening. Sophia caught the shift. Maya, I didn't answer, but she already knew. Everyone in the industry did. My name was back in the headlines, but so was hers, Maya Carter. Former Summit co-founder pleads guilty to corporate espionage. Back at the office, Lucas cornered me in the conference room. Ryan, we need to talk. He started, his voice measured, careful. Go ahead. Maya's deal, if she testifies, the feds drop most of the charges against her. They'll focus on Ethan, make him the scapegoat. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping. Of course they will. They always want the bigger fish, Ryan. We could let it happen. She gets minimal time, Ethan goes away for good, and we move forward. I leaned forward, my voice low, controlled, but sharp as a blade. No, she doesn't get to walk away from this. She doesn't get to rebuild while I carry the scars. No leniency. Not from me. Not from anyone. Lucas looked at me like I was a man gone too far, but he didn't push. Later that night, Sophia came by my office, blueprints in hand, but her expression softer than usual. Let me guess, I said dryly. Another structural revision. No, she replied, setting the blueprints down. Something else. She hesitated, then sat across from me, her voice low. You've built something incredible, Ryan. Summit the project's the vision, but you're building a fortress so high no one can get in, not even you. Her words hit like a punch to the ribs. You think I don't know that? I shot back, my voice sharper than I intended. I think you know it, she said evenly. I think you just don't care. The room was silent except for the hum of the city outside the windows. Look, Sophia continued, her tone softening. I'm not saying you forget or forgive, but you're not the man you were 2 years ago. You're harder, sharper, but you're also hollow. For a second, I almost told her about the box in my safe, the reminders of every scar on my father's broken watch, the bullet from Afghanistan Maya's wedding ring, the proof that every time I let someone in, I paid the price. Instead, I said nothing. Sophia stood gathering her papers. I'll see you in the morning. As she walked out, I stared at the empty chair where she'd been. Alone again. And yet, when I closed my eyes, I saw not the Singapore skyline or the blueprints for Dubai, but the flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time: possibility. The question was whether I had the strength to let it in. For now, there was work to do. I wasn't done building, not yet. A year after the coup attempt, I stood at the edge of the terrace in my new home, a minimalist steel and glass structure perched above Lake Washington, designed by my own hand. Every wall, every angle, every reinforced beam was intentional, just like me. Summit Engineering had not only recovered, it had thrived. Our stock value had tripled. Our designs were being taught in Ivy League lecture halls. Our Singapore tower had won every award it was eligible for. Now the Dubai project was well underway, and clients lined up months in advance just for consultations. But all of that felt mechanical. The machine worked because I refused to let it break. But I was the machine, now flawless, efficient, soulless. That morning I received a package. No return of address, just my name handwritten. Inside, a letter in a small velvet box. Maya's handwriting on the envelope was unmistakable. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The weight of the box told me enough. Her ring, the one I slipped onto her finger 12 years ago, back when we believed in impossible things. I placed it in the safe alongside the rest of my ghosts. My father's cracked watch stopped at the hour he died, the bullet that nearly tore through my spine in Kandahar. Now Maya's ring, another scar made solid. I didn't read the letter. I burned it. Some words don't deserve to live. Later that afternoon, I met with my executive team. We reviewed Phase 2 development strategies, international permits, timelines for the next 18 months. Lucas gave his updates. Emily reviewed cybersecurity risks. Sophia presented the structural assessments for Dubai. No one mentioned Maya's sentencing hearing that morning, but they all knew. 10 years in federal prison, no early parole, no exemptions, no deal. Justice, not vengeance. That's what I told myself, over and over. After the meeting, Sophia lingered behind. She didn't say anything at first, just stood in front of the panoramic window, arms crossed, eyes scanning the skyline. Finally, she turned to me. I heard Maya's sentence came through, she said. I nodded once. 10 years. She'll serve 5, maybe 6. That's 5 more than she deserved to escape. Sophia studied me, her eyes piercing. And what about you, Ryan? What sentence are you serving? I'm not the one on trial, I said quietly. No, you're the judge and the jailer. I looked away. She stepped closer, not confronting, just existing right there, warm and real. You've rebuilt everything, Ryan. The company, your reputation, even your legacy. But the man who did all that, she hesitated. Is he still capable of letting someone in? I didn't answer. I couldn't. That evening, I poured a bourbon and stood out on the terrace again. The air was cold. The wind off the lake cut deep. I thought about Tyler, Maya's son. He'd stopped calling. I didn't blame him. His world had collapsed too. He came to me once right after Maya's indictment. He asked me, was any of it real? I told him the truth. Yes, it was real. That's why the betrayal mattered. You can't fake pain. You can only earn it. Sophia showed up a little after midnight. I didn't expect her. I didn't invite her, but she came anyway. And this time I didn't tell her to leave. We sat on the terrace in silence, the lake shimmering below us. Finally, she spoke. You don't need to let go, Ryan, she said softly. You just need to stop letting it hold you. I looked at her, really looked at her, not just her face or her mind, but the steadiness in her voice, the strength behind the softness. I don't know if I can, I admitted. The most honest thing I'd said in months. Then start small, she whispered. So I did. I leaned forward. I let the silence stretch between us, not as a wall, but as a bridge. And I asked, what would you do with that cantilever system in Dubai if the crosswinds pick up mid-construction? Sophia smiled. I'd strengthen the undergirding, redirect the pressure, add tension where the stress breaks. My lips curled slightly. Good answer. You're not just building towers, Ryan, she said. You're still trying to build a life. Let someone help. I didn't promise her anything. I couldn't. But I didn't turn away either. We sat there, two architects surrounded by glass and steel, talking about load distribution and wind resistance like they were metaphors for everything we couldn't say directly. And maybe that's all we needed. Not closure, not absolution, just a blueprint for what came next. The next morning, I opened the safe again, not to revisit the past, but to mark the day I finally stopped letting it control me. I placed Maya's ring into a small container labeled lessons, not wounds, because I'd learned the difference now. One stays with you forever. The other teaches you how to build again. And I was finally ready to build again.